guys, and welcome back to another video on my channel. Before we get into today's video, I do just want to discuss the background. I absolutely am not comfortable filming in this background. I feel like this room is extremely echoey, it's too bright, and honestly right now it's just not working, which probably is why I've been uploading significantly less over the last little while, but I'm trying to get back into it. But with that being said, I think that the background might be changing a lot over the next little while until I find a room that I'm comfortable filming in and where I think works better for the filming setup and everything like that. So if the background starts changing a lot, don't be alarmed. I'm just looking for somewhere to film that works for me and the filming setup and everything like that. I think that's all I really needed to say. I feel like fall is approaching very, very fast, which has me feeling so excited. I'm so excited for Halloween, and I'm hoping over the next little while I'll be able to get more videos out for you guys because this is my absolute favorite season, and I feel like it motivates me to talk about more of these topics, especially, you know, around Halloween and stuff. I feel like everybody gets in that spirit, and I'm in that spirit all the time, so it just really makes me excited. But with that all being said, let's get right into today's video. For the future of this channel, I don't know how much true crime, missing persons cases I really want to cover. I feel like they're really draining. Obviously, they're emotionally heavy, they're devastating. Majority of the time, they don't have a good outcome or they're unsolved. And they're just really, really hard to cover, especially because I'm always worried that I'm missing something or I'm not gonna give this person, you know, all of the information that I need to be giving or all of the attention, and it's just really, really draining. And so I don't think that that's something that I really want to focus on anymore. Obviously, there will be cases that I'm drawn to that I probably will talk about, but I just don't want this channel to focus on that anymore. However, if you've been watching this channel for a long time, you probably know that I'm really interested in these missing persons cases or things along those lines that have to do with true crime that seem to have some kind of supernatural aspect to them. And those cases I will want to continue to talk about on this channel. And that goes hand in hand with people who go missing in national parks and things along those lines, because those kinds of cases absolutely fascinate me. And even if I feel like they're overwhelming and they are really, really a sensitive topic, I do feel drawn to talk about those cases in particularly. I hope I'm explaining that very well. So today's case is going to be along the lines of that. However, not to tarnish the ending, but it does have a happy outcome. So that's why I picked to talk about today's topic. Today we are going to be discussing the case of a 3 or 4-year-old boy by the name of Ryker Webb. And the reason that I say 3 or 4 is something that we are going to loop back around to in just a little bit. It was Friday, June 3rd of this year, meaning that this case is extremely recent, probably one of the most recent cases I have ever covered on this channel, when little Ryker was outside playing in his front yard with his dog in Bull Lake, Montana, when all of a sudden he just vanished. Now this case seems pretty strange right off the bat. However, none of the strange things about this case ever end up getting answered. The first strange thing that I want to brush on, I guess, or talk about is that at the beginning of the video I said that Ryker was either 3 or 4 years old, and while researching for this video I thought that maybe it was just an article mess up and some articles thought that he was 3 where others thought that he was 4. However, it allegedly turns out that his parents originally said that when he disappeared he was 3 years old, and then later came out and said that he was actually 4, which is a little bit confusing because you'd think you would know how old your child is. However, I don't know, I guess I don't have kids, so I don't know. So back to the case, it is said that Ryker was playing again in the front yard with his dog, and his father was sitting on the front porch watching him play. However, for whatever reason, his father had ended up going in the house for a moment to get something or do something, and when he came back outside, Ryker and the dog were both gone. Now it is suspected that Ryker somehow let the dog got away, and then Ryker was chasing the dog trying to catch him, but that can't be confirmed because nobody saw Ryker take off. After realizing that this little boy had somehow gone missing into the wilderness, a huge search group was formed involving ATVs, search dogs, drones, a bunch of people all in the Bull Lake area south of Troy to find Ryker. By Saturday morning, Montana's National Air Guard helicopters joined the search. Police drones also were searching at this time, and more search dogs and people on ATVs and whatnot also began to search. So the search party was just growing and growing. However, something that I just wanted to mention is the sheriff's department at the time told news outlets that they were having a very hard time searching for Ryker because the weather conditions at that time became so bad, and this included severe rainfall, which was causing really difficult visibility, especially up in the sky. Before we move on, I just want to mention, if you are really interested in people who vanish in national parks similar to me, then you've probably noticed that in a lot of these cases where children go missing in national parks or in the wilderness under strange circumstances, often in the first few hours of them missing, which is a vital time to search for these children as well as pretty much anybody, there are often severe storms. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, especially not in this case. I do just think that it is a pretty interesting piece of information to go along with, you know, people vanishing in national parks under strange circumstances and in the wilderness and things along those lines. Once police joined the search, there was a red alert sent out to everybody in close proximity to the area where Ryker had gone missing, just warning people to keep an eye out for this little red-haired boy who had wandered off, in hopes that somebody would come forward saying that they either seen him or they knew exactly where he was. Luckily, little Ryker was found on Pine Ridge Road, which was roughly 2 to 4 miles from where his home was, which was where he was last seen, meaning that he wandered from his home 4 miles or up to 4 miles to this place, and this is where he was 2 days later. Insane. The couple had found Ryker, and this part varies from article to article, either inside of an abandoned cabin or in a shed on this couple's property. Now, most articles do say that he was inside of the shed, so that's where we're going to go with. So this couple was outside and they heard whimpering coming from this shed that was on their property that they didn't really use, and they went in there and found little Ryker curled up inside of a bag that was for their lawnmower, trying to keep himself warm and protected from the bad weather outside. Despite it being June, a lot of the articles talking about this child's disappearance say that on that night in that area it was absolutely freezing, and again there was a rainstorm, there was a thunderstorm, and little Ryker was only wearing a onesie like footy pajama set, so I can only imagine how cold and scared this little boy must have been. Besides a few cuts and scratches from his adventures, ultimately little Ryker was found alive and well. He said that he was hungry and cold and tired and probably just wanted to go home, but a examination was done on him and he was deemed ultimately healthy and well and happy by the doctors at Cabinet Peaks Medical Center, which is amazing. That is the best ultimate, honestly, miracle of an outcome. I can only imagine how over the moon his parents and his family must feel, and honestly this is what we hope for in every single missing persons case. This is absolutely the best possible outcome, and I am so glad that little Ryker was found alive and well. I really do wonder, however, if the little boy had said anything to his parents or anybody else after being found, because, and I don't want to get too off track here, but I have 2 very small nieces. One of them is around the same age as Ryker, and they wander, they do definitely wander, but they get distracted so easily that it would absolutely shock me if they could get this far before anybody noticed that they were missing. Now, I'm not doubting that at all, that, you know, that's definitely a possibility, but I just wonder if he said, you know, he was following something or looking for something, or how he got from one point to another without stopping and kind of alerting somebody else in the area. What really caught the internet's attention about Ryker's case is the photos that were put side by side after he'd been found. One of these photos is of him smiling, happy-go-lucky, and one of them is the day that he was discovered in the lawnmower bag. And people claim that these photos do not look like the same child at all. So much to the point that there have been videos and full like Reddit threads and things along those lines just talking about the vast differences between these 2 photos. In these videos and on these threads, it's basically people saying that this is not the same child and that it is either like a skinwalker or a changeling or something like that. And obviously if there was any sign of that, that would definitely add interest to this case. However, just going off these 2 photos alone, I really don't think there's anything to back up those theories, and I do think that they are absolutely, to be honest with you, outlandish and silly. Something that I would like to talk about with the future of this channel, probably in my next coming video to be honest with you, is people's horror stories living living in the Appalachian Mountains. I've heard a few stories about people who have lived up there and have experienced absolute horrors that you couldn't make up, but were something like out of a scary movie. Like, they are absolutely just terrifying. A lot of people specifically who grew up in Appalachia saw these photos of Ryker and started commenting and saying things like, that isn't little Ryker, that is a changeling. And because of that, I started looking into the topic of changelings because I hadn't really heard much about them before. Now, before moving on with this video, I do just want to say that I do not mean to offend anybody. I am so happy that Ryker was found safe and sound, and I am not saying that this child is a changeling at all. I'm just going to use this as a segue into the changeling topic, and then we're going to circle back around to Ryker's case. So what I'm saying next has absolutely nothing to do with Ryker's case. I just wanted to include this in today's video as kind of like more depth to the video, I guess. So this part of this video really has nothing to do with the case, and we will circle back around at the end. There are two movies called The Changeling, and I think both of them are pretty popular. One of them I know is starring Angelina Jolie, and one of them I think came out in like the 80s or something. My mom used to talk about it all the time, but I was never able to find the movie to watch it myself. I haven't seen either of them, but I just wanted to specify that we are not talking about either of those videos today. So while looking into the changelings, I have found that there isn't very much information about them online. Now, it does seem that a lot of the elders and the people who know a lot about folklore in Appalachia know a lot about these creatures, but unfortunately that information hasn't really made it online. Google definition of what a changeling is for some reason really seemed confusing to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the definition off of Google, and then I heard about somebody else talking about this. It's a woman. She came from a long line of people who live in Appalachia. She still lives in the Appalachian Mountains, and she talks about how her family has always been into Appalachian folklore, and she knows a lot about a lot of things. So I'm going to use the Google definition, and then I'm going to kind of simplify it using what she said or described what a changeling was. Okay, so the wiki definition is a changeling, also historically referred to as an oof or an oaf, is a human-like creature found in folklore throughout Europe. A changeling was believed to be a fairy that had been left in place of a human stolen by other fairies. Obviously isn't that was difficult to understand whatsoever. It just seems like it doesn't give enough depth on what exactly that means, and like, why, if a fairy was left in the place of a child, would you not know it was a fairy? But this woman that I watched went into much more detail about it. I will link her video below, and I'm just going to use her definition because it just made more sense to me. So a changeling is a baby or a small kid that is taken by elves or fairies from the child's family and is replaced with a child that looks almost identical and almost human but isn't. The missing child in this lore is given to the devil to strengthen fairy magic and then replaced in like an evil devil duplicate type of thing. It is said that in these situations, usually the mother ends up looking insane because she knows that this isn't her child, and she is trying to convince everybody else that it isn't her child, but it just ultimately makes her look crazy. Apparently, there are a lot of cases in the Appalachian Mountains that people believe to have been changeling cases, and people strongly believe that this is a thing that takes place. It's said that the children that replace your child, if they are changelings, are not very problematic or anything like that. The only really weird thing about it, and the most problematic thing obviously, is that it is not human and it is not your child. So obviously, if changelings are real, they are an absolutely devastating creature, and I just can't even imagine. That would be so creepy and weird. However, this is one of those creatures that I altogether don't know if I believe exist or not. And listening to this woman speak and reading about people who have had encounters with changelings and things along those lines in the Appalachian Mountains were really giving me missing 411 vibes, or like missing people in national park vibes. And if you know anything about me, then you know that the feral people topic, or like the people disappearing in national parks, is one of my absolute favorite topics to research, to discuss. I just think that it is absolutely so fascinating. And I think any person who goes missing in the wild a lot of the times does give this kind of vibe, but the changeling thing is interesting in its own concept. Now, back to the case of Ryker. I do think that comparing these two pictures and thinking that there is absolutely anything wrong besides the fact that this kid has been missing for 3 days is a little bit outlandish. I also think it's a little insensitive, to be honest. And I also do not think that there's anything sus about either of these photos. Like, I don't think there's anything weird about the child himself. If you look at the photos, obviously there is a vast difference, but you have to take into consideration that this child has been alone in the wilderness for 3 days. Like, wouldn't even be able to survive like that. You can only imagine how terrified, traumatized, tired, like all of these things that this child would be to look like that. He's probably in a state of shock. He's probably lacking sleep. He's starving. And that would explain, you know, why his eyes are so wide and why he looks basically, just to me, exhausted. This case has gotten me back on the feral people thing and the Appalachian Mountains thing and all of those types of topics that I have discussed previously on my channel. So for my next video, I am likely going to be talking about the Appalachian Mountains if that is something that you guys are interested in. So let me know in the comments down below. I am once again so happy that this child has been found and that he has been reunited with his family. I can't believe that that happened. That is the absolute best, happiest, most fantastic outcome, and I'm so glad that there are cases like this out there that do have happy endings. But guys, that is going to bring us to the end of today's video. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to comment down below what you'd like to see in my future videos, and don't forget to subscribe and turn that notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.